how many of you guys have ever felt stressed? And of those people, how many of you feel stressed every single day of your life? Yeah, that's what I thought. But also, I want to ask, how many of you actually take time to relieve that stress? And that's where I started with my TED Talk. So in today's society, I believe that stress isn't taken seriously enough. It's only going to become worse with social media in this day and age because we have even more information to take in all at once. And that causes us to be really stressed. And I've started researching and realized that stress is cited as the basic cause of 60% of all diseases and illnesses. Just having stress in your life can cause you to become sick, which is something that a lot of us don't take into account. But don't get me wrong on this. Stress can actually be very beneficial to you. The whole point of having a stress hormone is so that you have a fight or flight response where you're able to react in really dangerous situations. And it also helps with your concentration. If you're getting small doses of stress at a time, it actually really helps you to concentrate on the task at hand. But the problem is when you're having that stress hormone constantly in your body, it becomes a continuous problem and leads to a phenomenon known as chronic stress. And that's when the problem starts. But first you need to understand how stress affects the brain. So the amygdala, which is the center of your brain used for memory, learning, and stress control, is highly affected by the amount of stress hormone in your body. The signals sent out by the amygdala are actually decreased by the presence of cortisol in your brain. And cortisol is your stress hormone. So when you have continuous exposure to stress, it decreases the signals that your amygdala can send out, which then decreases your ability to memorize things, your ability to learn, and it decreases your ability to control your own stress. So by having constant stress in your life, you're less likely to be able to control it yourself chemically in your body, which is really unhealthy, which led me to my research. But also, you can create you can create a solution to this. So the neural pathways in your brain are able to be repaired, which is called plasticity, which is really helpful because that means that you know that chronic stress can actually be repaired. But the problem is that that's a lot easier for younger people. So once you get older and you have that constant stress, it's a lot harder for your body to actually repair itself from it. So I wanted to find ways that you could repair that stress, but even prevent it beforehand so you're not actually getting that damage. Chronic stress is a very serious issue that I don't think we take seriously enough. It creates physical changes in your body, and it actually wears down your immune system, so you're a lot more susceptible to illness. And this causes you to lose your appetite, which can cause extreme gain or loss of weight, which is really unhealthy for your body. I realized that we need subjective solutions to stress because objective ones that we hear all the time, like you can eat healthy, may not always work for certain people's lives. And I became really curious about why stress is so dangerous. And I wondered if working with your hands could actually be a reliable form of relief for that. I personally really enjoy working with my hands, and I thought maybe if I found something I was passionate about, I'd be more likely to commit time to it. So I wanted to see if you find something you're passionate about, if you're more likely to commit time to keeping yourself mentally healthy. One of the most popular forms of working with your hands, or of stress relief, was exercise. And this is a form which wasn't working with your hands, which I just researched initially to kind of find out what stress relief does and why these common forms are common and why they work. So I run track, so I was really excited about this one because I thought, hey, I go to practice every day. This is going to be easy for me to figure out. So I went into practice usually at the end of school when I'm feeling really stressed out, when I've gotten all of my homework kind of piled on. And I tried to think about how stressed I was then versus when I was driving home. And I noticed a huge improvement for me. So exercise can be a really helpful and beneficial form for some people, probably because it's really easy to have in my life since I'm required to be doing it. But for those people who maybe are at the office all day and then they come home to screaming children, they're already in a high stress situation again, and they don't have time to release their energy through exercise. So I wanted to find another option. I looked to another common form of stress relief, which is socializing. And I'm very social, I'm extroverted, so it's an easy task for me to go out and talk to people. But I realized that there are a lot of people out there who have social anxiety, and sometimes they just really don't have the energy to socialize, and that makes it more of a stressor than an actual stress relief. And finally, I looked to one other common form of stress relief before I looked to working with my hands, and I found meditation. And I don't know about you guys, but I have a constant flow of thoughts going through my head all the time. So meditation sounds stressful to me, which is kind of crazy because it's known as a really great form of stress relief. So I realized that I really need to find something that everyone can relate to. And the object was to find an alternative for people whose lives don't allow the use of conventional forms of stress relief. And that kind of led me to working with your hands. My initial thought was building, because it seemed pretty simple. You work with your hands and build. There you go. Stress relief. But it's more than that. I actually researched this, and the reason that building is so helpful is because it allows you to focus your thoughts in on one thing that you have actual directions for doing. So all of those worries that you might have from your life, your brain's so focused on this that those kind of take a back seat, which is really helpful for someone like me who's got a lot of thoughts going on. And this means that your wandering thoughts are centered, which I kind of thought that this could be a really easy way for people with anxiety or people who tend to worry a lot to be able to get something they can focus in on so they're not worrying so much. Some people may not enjoy building things, though. Some people find it frustrating. I mean, when you're trying to put something together and it just won't fit, you might get more stressed than you actually feel relieved by doing it. So I tried coloring. And I know coloring seems like something elementary school kids do, but it was really fun. And you have to have noticed at stores that adult coloring books have become really popular now. And I was wondering why, because a lot of adults don't really spend time doing the things that they love outside of work usually. But it's because it's so helpful with your stress. It gets you to have some movement when you don't have time for exercise, and it gets you to maybe create something where you might feel like you're kind of stuck and not able to create things in your daily life. And coloring is very easy to commit to because you can start and stop whenever you want. You don't have a bunch of pieces of something you're building laying around in your house. You just have one coloring book and some pencils you can put away. So it was really easy. But some of us may not be artistically talented. I know I myself am not. That's why I like them to have really thick lines so I don't color the side of them. But that means that there are other options too, like baking. And I love to bake, so that was a really easy one for me. It kind of gave me the same feeling as building things because it's like building food. So that kind of brought about two of my passions, building things and eating things. So it was kind of a fun way to relieve my stress. It's similar to building because it's a mindless task where you have directions, but it kind of showed me that you can incorporate your own interest into your stress relief, and that actually makes it much more effective for individuals. I know working with your hands is a really broad category, so it seems kind of like a daunting task. But people can find options for themselves specifically, which is really helpful. The basic relief is the same. You centralize your thoughts, and it lets your worries kind of drift away. Exercise may be my go-to, but stress relief is really cool in the fact that as long as you're enjoying yourself and you're keeping yourself mentally healthy, you're doing a great job. Thank you. Let's get 2 note cards worth of stuff. Go ahead. Oh, I'm recording myself.